Good day everyone. So welcome to your myofascial release. Today we are working on spinal release, and especially if we're spending a lot of time sitting or we spend time at a desk, the fascia bands around the back and that run over the head and then down the back of the legs towards the heels and around the hips become extremely tight. So hopefully this is going to help us just to really release into that area, release some of that tension, allow that fascia to become a lot more elasticated and lubricated so it feels a bit more hydrated as well. For today we're going to be needing 2 blocks, and we'll be needing our myofascial balls and a pillow. If you don't have any blocks, you can just use maybe some hardback books and just build them up for the height that you'll need them. Okay, so let's get started. So our fascia is a kind of mesh-like webbing, almost like this, that runs through the whole body. It just sits beneath the skin and is connecting all of our organs, our muscles, our tendons, our ligaments together and connecting them to the bone as well. And a lot of the time when we have injuries, we assume that it's coming from the area that we feel it. But this injury may have been built up over time due to the neglect of the fascia. And with all the fascia bands that we have running around the body, a lot of the time these fascia bands, because they are so connected from the top all the way to the bottom, may mean that the injury that you think you're feeling in a certain place actually may be coming from somewhere completely different. So with working through the fascia, we will begin to release areas where tension is held, which in turn means it will soften up areas that potentially it's stemming from. Okay, so we're going to begin first of all with 1 ball. And we're just going to come up to a seated position. Now sit as comfortable as possible, legs crossed, however you like. I'm going to turn around so you're able to actually see what I'm doing here. And we're going to actually do a very nice gentle stimulation to the upper neck and shoulders here, just to loosen this up. So we'll just take the ball on our hand and we're just going to simply place the ball just at the back of the neck, avoiding the spine. So we don't want to be coming up where the bones run. We just want to be either side of that. And we're just going to gently begin to apply a light amount of pressure and just gently begin to circulate the area. Now, the great thing about myofascial release is that we are able to really monitor how far we go by ourselves. So just apply a gentle pressure to begin. Notice how that feels. And if you're looking for a little bit more, obviously you can start to apply a little bit more pressure. You're just going to work your way around the neck and then just down into the shoulder, just where the little crevice sits, where the shoulder dips down. It's a little bit of movement there, and you can just come across into that little crevice, and you can move down onto the shoulder here, just gently rolling it out. And get up into the base of the neck, just beneath the skull, where the skull begins, just moving around there. And just gently rolling down the side. And really just listening to your body in this moment, tuning in and just noticing how the body's feeling. Where is that sweet release? Where does it need to go a little bit deeper? Okay, and then we're going to gently release, and we're just going to move that straight over to the opposite side. So when you're ready, starting up the top of the neck and gently beginning to take those circular movements. Now you may find that one side's a little bit tighter than the other, so just go slow as always to begin. Remembering that it's a lot easier to add than to take away, so try not to dive in deep. Definitely about listening to your body and noticing where those really tight, tense areas are, and just gently working your way into them to release them safely and slowly. And this is really quite an easy way to start at the moment, and you might find there's a lot of tension here and you can feel it, but when we actually come into applying the body weight into the pressure, that's when we really begin to notice how much we need to maybe hold back and gently work our way in. So just getting over that shoulder, down into the little crevice here where the shoulder dips down. We've got the little U area. And then gently we're just going to start to release. Okay, so roll out your shoulders if you need to, and that's just a very nice light way of just getting into those shoulders a little bit. So that's very, very simple. So we're going to start to move down now into the top of the back, either side of the spinal column. So we never want to be on the spinal column, we want to be either side of it. Now, as we move forward, you are invited to use two balls if you want to. If you know what you're doing, you are able to withstand the intensity of two balls, then please feel free to use them. I would suggest, if you're beginning with myofascial release, is to start always with one ball. Okay, so we're going to begin on our very upper spine and mainly kind of shoulder area. So we're going to be placing the ball around this kind of area here. You'll feel, if you place your hand here, there's a more fleshier area that sits between where your scapula begins and the dip of your shoulder here. So that's kind of where the ball's going to go. Okay, so we'll be coming onto our backs now. The pillow is here to just soften things a little bit. Sometimes it's nice just to have a pillow underneath the head, but you may also not need it. If you do want to use it, make sure you've got it, but just make sure so it's not a really big pillow. You don't want a high one, just something that's quite low to the ground. So we'll start first of all on our left side, and we'll just hold the ball where it's going and we'll lower down with control. Now you want to make sure the ball is on the ground, not on the pillow, and the pillow's there just in case you need that extra little bit of comfort. So as you come down, you're going to probably realize quite quickly the intensity. We haven't actually applied much body weight at this point. So the body obviously feels slightly off balanced here. So you want to try to keep the head facing, or the gaze facing up. And you're going to find that obviously that left side is slightly more lifted and the right side is flat, and that's exactly what you want. Now, palms of the hands face down and the feet are flat, hip width apart. For most of us, this may be enough. This might be, okay, I'm feeling this, I've got very tight shoulders. So if this is where you are, just stay exactly where you are, stay still, and just allow yourself to gently breathe into the pressure. Now, you'll always know with myofascial if you're in the right place, because you have to also remember that there's the feelings that you're looking for. If it feels, it's almost like a good, bad pain. But if it feels like it's on bone and it's really painful, then remove the ball from where it is, slide it across till you find the fleshier area. Never just try to stay in severe pain. There is obviously going to be a slight amount of pain or discomfort to some extent, especially if we are very tight in the fascia bands. But you want to make sure that the area that you're sitting in is that good pain. You know, the one you know that is releasing, not the one you know is causing damage. So if this is enough, stay here. If you want to go a little bit further, you can just begin to take some gentle movement, very, very subtle, maybe side to side, a little bit up and down, and move the right side of the body. So not just the shoulder, move a little bit more into that right side, the upper right side of the body. So you're not just using your shoulder here, using a little bit more of the body. And if that's feeling good and you want to just take it a tiny little bit further, then the other option is also to begin to lift the bottom off the ground. You'll notice that will apply quite a bit of pressure there. So just be nice and mindful. Sometimes it's nice just to find that sweet spot and stay exactly where you are and find that stillness and breathe into it. Remembering the exhale is helping you to release, and you just want to keep that breath slow and steady and calm in and out the nose. I'll just take a few more breaths here. You may find that little knot somewhere as well, which I've just done. I've just gone over a knot, and now I'm trying to find it, and I'm going to hold on that knot and breathe. And just gently allow that to release. And not always are these going to happen straight away. This is something that you need to practice regularly, especially if you are quite prone to getting a lot of knots around the scapular area, which for most of us would be the case if it's quite gristly around there. Okay, and then we'll slowly, if your bottom's lifted, just lower it back down to the ground. And we're just going to begin to remove that ball. You can just move the shoulder off and just let the shoulder rest down for a moment. Just take a moment for the shoulder to rest on the ground. So you might also find that it's slightly activated some discomfort around the area, and that's totally normal, especially if you don't do myofascial release. It's very, very normal to feel a slight discomfort at first, but the release begins to happen from the moment we put the ball on there, we apply the pressure, and the release continues. So it will still continue throughout the day. Okay, so we'll take the ball, we'll place it now under the right shoulder, and again looking for that little kind of fleshier area just to the side of the scapula and just down from the dip where the shoulder is. And once you find it, you'll know when you have. Remember, it's high up on the shoulder. Once you find it, then just come to find your stillness. Take a moment here. And gently breathing into the body. And remember, slow, steady, calm breaths. The exhale is the release into the tension. So it's allowing you to feel yourself sink into the tension, sink into the ball, which is helping to release that tension. And if this is enough for you, just stay exactly as you are. Obviously, if you want to go a little bit further, maybe a tiny bit of movement, very, very small. And just allowing that to really work into that area. And if we're looking for a little bit more, then maybe we can begin to lift that bottom, applying a tiny bit more pressure. But this can make quite a big difference. So again, just be sure to listen to your body. If it's really not feeling good, just come down, put the bottom back on the mat. And keeping the breath steady, and if you find those little knots, maybe just holding there, hanging out for a moment, breathing into it. Sometimes you may feel them just completely dissolve away and it goes really nice and soft. And sometimes that may not happen. Again, the more regular that you practice your myofascial release, the more often that you're going to feel those knots dissolve. And sometimes they've been lingering there for a long time. You need to really spend, a good amount of time on trying to work into them. Okay, and then slowly we're going to release the bottom back down to the ground. Just hold here for a moment. Let the body just adjust. And then gently we can release that ball and just pull it away. Once you bring it away, just let that right shoulder rest down. If you want to remove the pillow for a moment, just so everything's flat on the ground. And just let those shoulders rest. So you may also notice that the left shoulder that we started on has now begun to really relax, where at first it might have felt a bit uncomfortable when you finished. Now you might find that it's really relaxing into the ground, and that's exactly what you're looking for there. So hopefully you're beginning to feel that. The right side will catch up as well in a moment. Okay, so we'll just roll onto our left side and just gently make our way up to a seated position. So as you can see, that if you're not used to doing myofascial release, this is quite intense, and that's just very much starting at the top of the back. So I would definitely advise starting with one ball. If you are used to doing myofascial release and you like that intensity and you want to go a little bit deeper, being sure that you're listening to your body, then 2 balls, and you would just place them both in the same place either side and then rest into them from there, both feet flat, and then obviously to add more intensity, lifting the bottom. And you can again take very subtle movements that will help just to work into those areas. A lot of the time I prefer to just be still. I really prefer the pressure, that I find that sweet spot, and I just sit into it and breathe into it, and I find that that really helps to consciously allow me to find that release as well. Okay, so we're going to move a little bit further down the spine now, and we're just going to move into the kind of scapular shoulder blade area here. So we're going to be, again, either side of the spinal column, and we're going to rest just before where the scapula kind of sticks out. You can kind of take your hand and feel where the scapula comes around and then goes back in again. And that's where the ball's going to sit, between the spinal column and the shoulder blade. So again, we're back on our backs and holding onto your ball, and walk your way down. And then from here, just finding on that left side, that little sweet spot. Now, you'll know when you're there for sure on this one. So like I said, it's just to the side of the spine and to where the scapula kind of comes out. The scapula's got a little bit of almost like a P shape. So it's just beneath that. Feet come flat. And again, if you're finding that it's really difficult to get the head back onto the ground and it just feels uncomfortable in the neck, then take the pillow and place it underneath of you. Okay, so just take a moment here, breathing into it. And if there is severe discomfort, the kind that you know isn't right, then you need to move around a little bit more to find that area that we're looking for. If you're on the area, and you will feel a sense of discomfort to some extent because you won't be used to it, but you will know that it's a good place to be. So just take a moment, notice that that's in the right place. And then if you want to, you can begin to just move around very gently. Tiny movements, using just the upper body. The hands can be flat. That just helps to stabilize and ground you a little bit more. Also just helps you to feel a little bit safer in the movement. The feet are flat hip distance. If there's any tension building through the neck, build your pillow up a little bit more. If you find that sweet spot, maybe just taking a moment of stillness. Now, because the rib cage is connected all the way around the scapular area, you may find that some of the areas that you touch into can almost feel restricting on your breath. That's very, very normal to feel that. So if you find that area, just take time to stop, smooth out the breath, slow and steady, and small breaths in and out of the nose. And if it's really quite difficult, it might mean that you're applying too much pressure. So just use your arms to push into the ground to draw some of that pressure out, but try not to bring too much tension into the arms as well. Let the left shoulder sink down, so you don't want that lifting high. Try to let that sink down. Even I just realized then that the tension was building a bit in my shoulder, so trying to be mindful of that and let that shoulder just sink down. If anyone's really enjoying this and would like to go a tiny bit further, lift your bottom off the ground, and that's going to apply quite a bit of pressure there. So just be mindful again, and if you want to move around a little bit, you can. And you're just really working your way into that fascia band nice and gently. So remembering that the fascia bands run all over the body, but the ones that we're mainly working into today will be the one that runs either side of the spinal column. And that goes all the way down towards our glutes and towards our hips, but it's then in turn connects to the fascia band that runs down from the side of the body towards the sole of the foot. The fascia band that runs up either side of the spinal column that we're working into also runs over the back of the head and over the top of the head. So this will help to release things like migraines as well, if you struggle with migraines or headaches. Also always beneficial to helping us to release tension, stress, anxiety in the body. Okay, we'll just take a couple more breaths here. And then if the bottom is lifted, let's just lower that back down. Take a moment and then release the ball from underneath of you and just let that left shoulder rest down onto the ground. Take a moment here, both shoulders relaxed. And remember, if there's a sense of discomfort, that's totally fine. You're going to notice that that's going to release quite a bit. That as we move on to that right side, you probably won't even notice the left side anymore. Okay, so we're going to move to the right side. We'll take our ball and we'll just bring it back under. And just take a moment to notice if you're in the right spot. You can use the body to really adjust yourself into that spot as well. So if you find that when you put the ball under, you're a little bit further away from it, don't worry about moving the ball too much. Maybe just move your body around onto it. That'll help you also to get used to the kind of small, subtle movements. There's nothing fast about this practice in any way whatsoever, so allow yourself to slow down. And again, as you come into this, notice how the breath may be slightly restricted, that compression into the rib cage. Remember, that's totally normal, so give yourself time to allow the breath to... That's totally normal, so give yourself time to allow the breath to just adjust to the pressure that's being placed in that area. And again, you may just want to be nice and still here, and that might just be working for you. Maybe you want to take some small movements, or maybe you're looking for a little bit more and you want to lift the bottom and apply a little bit more pressure. But again, just really tuning into your body. If that's not where you are in this moment, just let the bottom come back down. And we want to really make sure that we are listening to our bodies when we're doing our myofascial release. And going too far can make the fascia a little bit tenser. So you want to make sure that if it's not feeling good, if it's not where the body is right now, just let yourself draw back out. And that's why it's always better to kind of start from a lighter side and then work yourself into that more heavier side as you go, rather than having to constantly pull yourself back. And the fascia will just generally release more gently over time than going in and creating more tension in other areas of the body as well, and then having to come back out of it. And smoothing out that breath. And also just a really nice opportunity to just have some time to slow things down. Let that right shoulder soften, make sure that's not hunching up. Well, there you go, and I've just found a nice little knot there. So I'm just going to sit into it, breathe. And it's important to remember, again, that if you don't practice myofascial in any way, if you don't do any type of rolling out, the body, it will feel very alien for you. So if you're thinking, hang on, am I doing this right? Should it feel like that? Don't worry yourself, don't stress yourself over it. In time, the body will adjust and will become familiar with the fascia release. And you'll start to really appreciate and enjoy this practice. Really, the benefits for me come after. What I start to feel throughout the day, where that gentle release is continuing. Okay, if the bottom's lifted, just gently lower it back down. And then we'll take the ball from underneath and just let both shoulders rest on the ground. Remove the pillow if you need to. And just take a moment there. All right, and we're going to move a little bit further down the spine now. So we're going to come into the center of the spine. So you can just roll onto your side and make your way up. So now we're going to be roughly around this kind of area, the middle of the spine. And again, either side of the spinal column. Now, because we're on the very lower part of the rib cage, this can be extremely sensitive for a lot of people. Our kidney area also is where we store a lot of our emotions. Emotional stress gets stored here, and the emotional toxins are stored in the kidneys, especially if we obviously drink a lot as well, or if we have a high sugar diet. So you may find that this can be a very sensitive area. So just go lightly on this. So we're going to come down and we'll make sure we've got hold of that ball, and the ball's going to be roughly where the kind of very lower part of the rib cage, just to the side of the spine. So You may find that you might want to just stay on your forearms here. This might be enough, especially if you are very sensitive in that area. You might find that just applying a small amount of pressure there, staying still, works for you. You might want to take a little bit of movement side to side. Otherwise, you may want to come down. Now, if you're coming down again, just go slowly. Head can be on the pillow if it needs to be. You don't need to use this pillow. I just like it there because it just makes it a little bit more comfortable for me in my neck. And just take a moment. Let yourself adjust. So sometimes when you're resting in certain areas on the fascia bands, you may feel a slight pulling in other areas. So for me, because I have an old injury from my lower spine, when I come into my myofascial release on this part, what I get is a little tugging that comes down, which feels like it comes down into just above my left hip, on the back of my left hip. And that's because that's where the fascia band is also running. And it may be that that's actually the area that's the tight area, and this is just triggering that. So if there is pain that you cannot outstand, then remove away from it. If it's something that feels a little bit funky, but it feels like it's good, then just stay where you are and maybe find stillness over movement. Okay, so just allow yourself to breathe. Again, anyone looking for more, you've got that slight bit of movement you can take, or you can lift the bottom and gently apply that pressure and gently move across it or stay still. And when you do lift the bottom, what's great is you do also obviously have the feet planted, so they're also able to draw some of that weight out for you. If you find that you're kind of really using the legs a lot to lift that pressure off, it probably means that you need to just lower the bottom down. Okay. So remember, we're trying not to add any more tension to the rest of the body. Just keep the breath smooth in and out of the nose. You can even close down the eyes and just allow yourself to really focus into what's happening, where you feel it in the body, where the tighter areas are, the looser areas, where you feel something, where you feel nothing, where it's overly sensitive. Okay, and then we're just going to gently come to stillness. If the bottom's lifted, we'll release that back down. And then we'll remove the ball and just let that side lower down onto the mat. So while we'll wait for that just for a moment to release, notice the rest of your body, where we started, the shoulders. Whenever I do my own myofascial shoulder massage at the top, usually I'm like, oh my goodness, it feels so good, but it's so intense because my shoulders can be so tight at times. And I finish and I think, hang on, no, I need at least another hour on that, or I need a good deep massage. But then I move on to the rest of my body and I almost forget about everything up here. It's like as if it's just totally dissolved away. So just be conscious of how the rest of your body is reacting over this practice, from where you started to where you are now, and where areas felt really extremely tight or very sensitive. And as you came out of it, maybe you were thinking, oh my goodness, this is just a bit too much. And now maybe they don't feel anything at all. So just being conscious of that as you go along. We'll take the ball and we'll place it under the right side. Again, looking for that area just to the side of the lower rib cage and to the side of the spinal column. And allow yourself to rest down onto it. It's always the most, like a bit more of the fleshy area. You don't want to be on the bone here, just kind of a little bit more to the side of that. And you find those little fleshier areas. Again, you may find one side to the other reacts very differently. And just allow yourself to sit into it for a moment. Let your shoulders be soft. Head on the pillow if you need to. Breath smooth. If you're looking for a little bit more, maybe a small movement just on that area, whether that's side to side or little circular movements. And then if you're looking for even more, maybe lifting the bottom, and you then got that body weight to apply more pressure, but using the feet also to really guide that, so that you're not just dumping all that weight onto the ball and it just becomes far too intense. And that will just create more tension, but also can create injuries. So just going slow and soft. If there's somewhere that feels really good, stay on it for a bit, enjoy it. Enjoy that nice release, enjoy the area that's singing out to you. So you'll notice that we're only using one ball throughout this practice. And until you get used to doing myofascial release, I would really recommend using just one for now. We will get into two at some points, and there's some areas that do require two, but at the moment, I think while you get used to what we're trying to achieve here, while the body gets used to the fascia being released, which maybe for a lot of us we've never done, then I would always recommend just one ball for now. Okay. And then this feels really good for me on this side, and I don't want to stop, but we're going to have to. So from here, just lower the bottom down. If you have it lifted, take a moment. And then you can release that ball and just let that lower spine completely release down. So remembering that this is just your guide. So you've got this now available to you, and you can do this for as long as you want. You don't have to do it as long as I've said in this video. You can do it much longer if you want to. And I would always recommend your myofascial really either in the morning before exercise or in the evening after, after gentle exercise like yin. And that just allows the muscles to be as relaxed as they can be in that moment. And if we do it straight after intense practices or dynamic movements, the muscles are still reacting and contracting, and they need to allow them to relax and release first of all before we start to do any sort of fascia release. Okay, so let's roll onto our sides and come back up to our seated position. So we're going to come into the very lower part of the spine now, and that's going to be in this area here. So if you found this area very intense and very sensitive, you're probably going to find this area the same. This is obviously where the kidneys are, so this is where it can become very very intense and like very, very sensitive around that area. So go lightly and slow, and the ball is going to rest just above. You'll feel, if you place your thumb, you run your thumb up, you'll feel the top of your hip bone, and then you feel the fleshy area there. It's going to rest in that part there. Okay. We'll start on the left side first. So just come down mindfully onto your backs and use your pillow if you need to. And we'll place that ball into that area and then let the bottom rest down. So at first, for some of us, you might be like, oh, that's so nice, or I can't feel anything. For some of us, we may be screaming out right now. Just listening to your body. The intensity will arise if you don't feel much now is when you lift your bottom. That's usually when it comes in. So option to just move very slowly, gently side to side. And this one for me just feels so good into my left hip. I can feel that right down into the very top of my glute and into my left hip. That doesn't mean you're going to feel it like that. So just notice though where you're feeling it. Where does it also direct to? Because the fascia bands are so connected to all different parts of the body, do you feel it somewhere else as well? If you're wanting more, lifting the bottom, and that's where you're going to start to feel that intensity rise now. So we don't want to apply heavy amounts of pressure here as we work over the kidney. We want to nice, be gentle and soft. So try not to let all of that weight come back. Use your feet also to take some of that pressure away. Your hands are flat. Just giving you stability, allowing you to feel safe in the movement. And really important as well here is to pull the belly button in, so activate the core. And what you're looking for really is more of a It wouldn't be a full protraction, but your spine is pushing back rather than any flexion into the spine. And that would really be applied to all of the spine, to be honest. I should have said that at the beginning. You don't want to flex into the spine, really. You want to try to keep it. I mean, obviously, when your bottom's down, there is flexion there, but you want to think about sinking into the ball. So activating the core, especially on this one, activating the core, bringing it in, and that will in turn push that lower spine back towards the ball. Even though there may be a slight curvature there, that's totally fine, but you want to focus on pushing the spine towards the ball. Or think more about the abdomen being active. Okay, we'll just take a few more rocks and rolls, or maybe a few more breaths of stillness wherever you are. And then we'll slowly come to a still position. If your bottom's lifted, lower it back down. Just take a moment. And then taking hold of your ball and releasing it. Let that lower spine just relax onto the ground. So again, make sure there's no curvature now. Let the lower spine be relaxed. If there's anything that's lingering there, just be conscious as you move forward how that releases over time. Okay, we'll take the ball, place it onto the opposite side. So just looking for that little fleshy area above the hip bone and just beneath the rib cage. So again, just taking a moment to find it and then find stillness and sit into it. Let the abdominals begin to engage, so that lower spine is pushing out. Just breathing softly into that area. And then from here, if you want to go further, maybe some small movements, maybe side to side, back and forth, or if we're looking for even more, maybe lifting the bottom and allowing more pressure to be applied there. But again, just being mindful of that, taking it easy, slowly. Again, be aware of any other areas that you're feeling that release. If you feel it stem to other parts of the body, if you find that sweet spot, just try to dine out on it for a bit. Hold still, breathe into it. A lot of the time where we feel a lot of that kind of knotty areas is just, it's the fascia band twisting and becoming very sticky, which is what happens when it's neglected over time. Let's think of it like dough. You know, it's like as if you haven't kneaded the dough to make it soft and elasticated, and so it has none of those little bumps in it or anything. You know, and when you don't knead the dough properly, it becomes all lumpy. It kind of binds up. It's just like that. Okay, so if the bottom's lifted, we'll let that come down towards the ground. Take a moment and then take hold of the ball and release and just let that side rest. And notice how the left side feels. So the last side that you just worked on, how does that feel? That right side will catch up in a moment. Okay, so we'll roll onto our left side and come up to seated. So the last two areas we're going to work into, so now we've done the full spine all the way down. The two areas that also can really affect how the spine feels is mainly our hip area. So there's two exercises we're going to do to work into that, which will be our glutes and our outer hip. Our outer hip being also our gluteus medius, which is one of our muscles that we need for balancing. So it's a very crucial muscle, and there's a big fascia band that rests around that as well. So if you do a lot of balancing postures and you don't roll out, that fascia band is probably becoming quite tight. So that's hopefully then in turn going to release and help that lower spine predominantly release as well. Okay, so we'll use a block here. So what we're going to do now, this one's very intense. We're going to bring the left leg over to the left side and place the right foot over. We're going to take hold of our ball and we're going to rest that into that fleshy area on the side. Just quickly show you. it's this part right here. If you pull your bottom in, you can see where the dip is, where it dips in. That's where the ball's going. Okay, so we'll start on that left side first. We'll place that right foot over. Now for some of us, this could be hell on earth. So just take time. Now you can stay up on your arm if you want to here. That feels comfortable as long as you're not locking out the elbow. I personally prefer to be on the forearm, or the other option is to be on a block with a pillow as well. So if you want to be raised a little bit more, you can just be on that block with a pillow. So also you have your second block, which is where your right foot can go if you're looking for a little bit more intensity. Okay, so this is your setup to get deeper into that area, but if you're like, it's just enough of the foot on the ground, stay where you are. If you want the pillow, if you want the block, just to keep you a bit more elevated. Try not to let the weight dump into that shoulder, so adjust where you need to so that you're not just sinking down and there's loads of pressure going to the shoulder. You've just done all of that release, so you don't want to add any more to the shoulder here. The right hand can just be placed on the ground, and that's just going to help you to again have a bit more stability and remove some of the weight. You might find stillness, you might want to move slightly. Some people like to lift their legs up, but I think it's better we just stay as we are for now. So just gentle movements if you're taking them. Circular movements are what are probably the best. Side and side, back and forth can be nice, but circular movement, especially when you get into these kind of areas, will allow you to really work deep into the fascia and cover that area as well. Keeping the breath smooth. And you find that sweet spot maybe just staying still. And again, notice if there's areas that you can feel further beyond where you are. And I can feel that right to the bottom of my foot in some places that I move there. And that's that fascia band that runs right down underneath the sole of the foot. Okay, we'll take a few more breaths. Alrighty, so we're going to release. So from here, we'll just place the foot back over, lift the bottom, take hold of your ball and let it come back out. Okay. So you can always just take more time there if you'd like to. And then we're going to move our way to the opposite side. So maybe using the block and the pillow. And we're going to extend the right leg out and step the left leg over. And again, looking for that little area, fleshy area. And just placing that that ball under there. Maybe setting yourself up first. Might be an idea. And then just giving yourself a moment to adjust. Whew, that side for me is so much more tighter than the other side. Just being aware of the difference between both sides. You may find a pattern through your body within myofascial, within your any practice, that one side is tighter, one side is more supple. You might find that it kind of zigzags across the body. There's no real pattern. And that can also just be linked, like I said, to the fascia bands because they run in all different places. Problems in your right shoulder may also stem from the outer left knee. Okay, small movements, or maybe finding the sweet spot, hanging out on it, and breathing smoothly. Maybe there's circular movements. There's a few more breaths here. Okay, and then we're going to release. So moving the ball out, sitting the bottom down, and then rising back up. Okay, last place that we're going to do is our glutes. I say that with wide eyes because this is definitely the one that can get you. Especially if you've been doing a lot of endurance work, glute work, then you may find that this one can be quite sensitive. So we'll come down again mindfully, nice and controlled. And the glutes being obviously the big muscle in our bottom, the ball is going to be placed right to the center of the bottom of the butt cheek, your left butt cheek. Now you'll feel it go over the sit bone as well, that little knobbly bone that's in your bottom. Now all we're going to do here is move around. So there's not necessarily one particular area. Just want you to wiggle around a little bit over the glute. If it's too intense, find the area where the most tension is, and then again, hold there and just allow yourself to dine out on it for a bit. Just take a moment to breathe into it and just feel it softening and releasing. You may find that it becomes really tolerable, and if it does, then that's your cue. Move on to another little area that's really tight, sit onto it, hold out, breathe into it. If it becomes tolerable, move on to another area. And you're just moving, I mean, really it's just around the center of the butt cheek really, and around that area. You're not trying to get up into the sides or anything at the moment. We're just getting into that area because all we're trying to do is work with the spine. We can work deeper into the glutes and other areas of the glutes in the next coming myofascial videos. But for this one, we're just staying around that kind of sit bone area. You may even go over that sit bone. You may find there's a little bump there. That's that little knobbly bone in your bottom. Just smooth and steady and slow with the breath. And so this practice can work in two ways. If you're practicing in the morning, as slow and chilled as it is, you may find it's very exhilarating for the rest of your day, especially if you do any other practices afterwards. If you're practicing this in the evening, you may find that it allows the body to release tension, that you become really chilled and sleepy, and it makes better way for a night's sleep. So it can kind of be used in, whichever direction you're going, whether it's morning or night. All right, let's come to a still position, and we'll just gently release the ball. And we're just going to take it straight over to the opposite side. Again, place it back into that area in the center of the glute, let the bottom rest. Whatever's happening on that left side, be aware of it, and then we'll notice how that releases over time. Okay, and when you're ready, you can start to begin to just move slightly. Oh, there you go. There's a real tight area there for me. I'm just going to hold, breathe into it. And like I said, it's that kind of good bad pain. Feels weird, but it feels good as well at the same time. And I can feel that right now where I am. I'm feeling that right down into my calf, on the right side of my calf, so more on the outer edge of my leg. Whew, goodness me, that is tight there. But this is good. When you see those moments, really good to notice where they are, and noticing when you do your fascia release, is it the same place each time? And if so, that's the areas that you want to get into. That's where you're going to need to build up that tolerance, that you can start to get deeper and deeper to get that fascia release, because that's an area for me that obviously has been neglected. And it's really tight in that area, so I need to spend more time releasing. My goodness, it feels amazing. Okay, any other movements obviously you want to take, completely up to you. Circular movements are good. If you find the areas, hold still. Breathe into them. All right, and we're just going to come back into stillness if we're moving. Just let everything rest down onto the ground and remove the ball. Let the buttocks release, and just notice how the left feels at the moment. Again, wherever you found those really tight areas, and when you came out and released the ball, what was still feeling quite active to what now is completely deactivated. Notice how the spine feels, the shoulders. Okay, and then we'll just take a roll onto our left side and gently make our way back up to seated. All right, guys, so that is your spinal myofascial release. Hopefully that's also helped to release a little bit of tension around the kind of hip area, mainly outer hip, and then down into that lower spine, and also your glutes as well, but all very interconnected to your spine. So all of that is going to help to release the full spine. Be conscious of how you feel for the rest of the day. Make sure especially if this is in the morning, just notice how awakening it can be for your body. And if this is in the evening, notice how beneficial it can be for your sleep. Most importantly, make sure you keep yourselves hydrated as well. We will be feeling maybe potentially a little dehydrated if you're not used to doing any fascia release. So make sure you keep your hydration up, and we will delve deeper and deeper as time goes on. Thank you though, guys, for taking your time to look after your bodies. If there's any questions, anything you want to ask, pop it in the comments below, and then I will answer back through the YouTube. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you all soon. Peace out, everyone.